Number 6. The Abraham Kinson. After the fierce Battle of the Java Sea in February of 1942, after which the Allied forces suffered a scathing defeat at the hands of the Japanese naval forces, only one Dutch warship remained floating, the HN-LMS Abraham Kinson. The vessel was a minesweeper ship that had been intending to retreat from the ending stages of the battle with other warships and head towards Australia. However, the ship and its crew found themselves having to make the journey alone, while the watchful eyes of the Japanese Navy looked for any ships that had made it through unscathed to finish them off once and for all. The Abraham Kinson wasn't a powerful warship by any means. With a maximum speed of 15 knots and very little firepower in the form of one 3-inch gun and two 20mm cannons, it stood no chance of being able to defend itself or fight back if it was spotted and engaged. And that was only the threat from the seas. The ship also had to be wary of Japanese bombers circling the skies like hungry vultures up above. After all, there was no way that they would withstand a direct hit. Facing an increasingly desperate situation, the 45-man crew frantically tried to think of a solution that could get them out of their predicament, and thankfully, they latched onto one particular out-of-the-box idea to turn the ship into an island. Due to being in the Pacific Ocean, there were scores of small, uninhabited islands that were lush with vegetation, so an extra one wouldn't look too out of place. The crew quickly took to raiding nearby islands, cutting down trees and gathering plants in order to adorn them across the ship like a tropical canopy. And any spare spaces that they couldn't cover were painted, so they either blended in with the trees or looked like rocks to pull the whole image together. They faced another problem though, and that was the fact that islands, unlike ships, didn't move across the water. If the Japanese spotted an island casually sailing through the seas, then the ruse would definitely be up. So to combat this, they decided to lean into being a floating island. During the day, they would moor up at a nearby island, making it look like they were part of it and not moving at all. But as soon as darkness fell, the Abraham Kinson would put the pedal to the metal and cover as much ground as they could during the night. They would then rinse and repeat the cycle the following day. Amazingly, the ship managed to make the 8-day journey to Australia's waters completely undetected by the Axis powers, reuniting with the Allies and creating one of the most interesting and creative war stories in the process. Number 5. Operation Mincemeat. During World War II, a remarkable tale unfolded in July of 1943 when British intelligence orchestrated Operation Mincemeat. The mission sought to mislead the Germans regarding the Allied plans to land in Sicily, a pivotal move in the war that would have had disastrous consequences had it been foiled. A team of British intelligence officers dreamed up a daring plan involving a dead body dressed as an officer, equipped with fabricated documents suggesting an impending Allied invasion of Greece and Sardinia. The corpse would be strategically placed to appear as if it had come from a plane crash to then float ashore on the southern coast of Spain. The idea for Operation Mincemeat came from one of the greatest minds in spy fiction. The Trout Memo was authored by Rear Admiral John Godfrey. However, it's strongly believed that most of the work was put in by his assistant, Ian Fleming. If the name sounds familiar, that's because he's the man behind the James Bond novels. The Trout Memo, the name linking a comparison between deceiving the enemy and fly fishing, included a list of schemes, with the 28th suggestion being the notion of employing a corpse with false plans. And surprisingly, this is exactly what the British decided to go for. The search for a suitable corpse proved challenging until the discovery of a dead homeless man from Wales in a warehouse who'd succumbed to rat poison. Having no real links to anyone thanks to his unfortunate circumstances, the man would be perfect to sculpt a new fake identity around. This was done by creating pocket litter, small items and fake documents to make the man appear like he was a credible person. Letters, bills, even fake play tickets were forged, helping to shape the corpse's new identity as Major Martin, an amphibious landings expert for the Royal Navy. Two pivotal documents fueled the deception. The vital document from General Sir Archibald Nye to General Harold Alexander outlining false plans for an attack on Greece and Crete, and a letter from Louis Mountbatten, the Admiral of the Fleet, hinting at Sardinia being the next target. The body, codenamed Martin, washed ashore in Huelva, Spain on April 30, 1943, a spot that was strategically chosen for its currents, which pushed the body closer to shore. Huelva was also chosen for its pro-German presence and its reliable British consul. An autopsy conducted on May 1st revealed Martin's supposed demise in a plane crash. The planted documents triggered frantic German-Spanish communications seeking copies of the contents. The success of Operation Mincemeat hinged on German thoroughness, and as early as May 14, 1943, Hitler, in a meeting with Admiral Karl Donitz, diverted reinforcements from Sicily to Greece and Sardinia. Even with the Sicily invasion commenced on July 9, 1943, Hitler persisted in the belief that the major assault would target Greece. The elaborate web of deception, born from fiction and embraced by novelists and intelligence experts, played a crucial role in shaping the course of World War II. What's the most ingenious military plan you could come up with? Let us know in the comments down below, unless you want to keep it top secret. Number 4. The Ghost Army. Some of the most powerful soldiers in World War II didn't even carry guns. Known as the Ghost Army, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops and the 33rd Special Signal Company comprised artists, sound engineers, and designers whose aim was to disrupt the enemy forces as much as possible. One of the ways in which they did this was to use their skills to make the unit appear a bigger threat and far larger than it actually was. By using carefully crafted decoys, sound effects, and more, they could make a team of 100 men appear to the German troops as if it were 3,000 strong. They could also make the deception last until the enemy was a quarter of a mile away. Working under the cover of darkness, the team would inflate rubber tanks, trucks, and even airplanes that were designed to be so realistic that they'd confuse the Nazi Air Force. They also created fake recordings that were styled to sound like key personnel, as well as blasting recordings of military drills and the sounds of a fully functioning military base that didn't exist. In the summer of 1944, during the siege of the French port of Brest, the Ghost Army pulled off their first major trick. They set up 50 dummy tanks and positioned sound trucks near the front line. This was all part of Operation Brittany, where they successfully misled the Germans about the location of General George Patton's Third Army, allowing it to race eastward across France without detection. Fast forward to September of 1944, when Patton's forces faced a challenge attacking the fortified French city of Metz. A gap emerged in his line, and the Ghost Army came to the rescue. Using inflatables and loudspeakers playing tank noises and military commands, they held the precarious line for 7 days until reinforcements finally arrived. The Ghost Army's bag of tricks also played a crucial role in the Battle of the Bulge. Their radio deception diverted German attention, enabling Patton to relieve the Belgian town of Bastogne. The Ghost Army's greatest feat came in March of 1945 as part of Operation Viersen. As the 9th Army prepared to cross the Rhine River, the Ghost Army positioned itself strategically, inflating dummies and impersonating 2 divisions and 40,000 troops. They created a spectacle with fabricated division numbers, phony headquarters, and even fake commanders discussing false intelligence and local hangouts. And amazingly, the illusion worked like a charm. While the Germans were busy dealing with the Ghost Army's theatrics, the 9th Army crossed the Rhine with minimal resistance. Just a few weeks later, World War II finally concluded. But who knows what would have happened had the Ghost Army not helped to secure major victories in its final moments. Number 3. The Fake Airfields of the UK. During World War II, the UK came under heavy bombing from German Luftwaffe, leading to widespread damage and casualties in its towns and cities. So to combat this, not only did the Air Force try to take down the bombers in the sky using anti-aircraft guns and fighter planes, but they also had another trick up their sleeves in the form of a new department that had been set up within the Air Ministry. The department was spearheaded by Colonel John Fisher Turner, who got together some of the very best from the film and construction industry to create decoy sites and airfields all across the country to dupe the German forces. Using their skills at creating elaborate film sets in indoor studios, props and clever use of lighting in large open areas were used to simulate false targets for the German bombs up above. This then meant that real construction projects like towns, military bases, factories, and even railway networks were left alone, spared from bombing thanks to the decoys. One of the most impressive parts of the decoy program wasn't the elaborate bases that they constructed, but the way in which they would emulate bombing strikes to make the enemy think that they'd hit their target. This was done by creating 20-foot towers that were strategically arranged to look like rows of buildings from above. On top of these, the department placed tanks containing either paraffin or diesel, which they would then use a lever to release the fuel onto smoldering coals on the towers, resulting in a plume of black smoke. Then, by quickly extinguishing the fire afterward, the resulting steam would be a perfect simulation for a successful bombing raid. It's believed that this strategy in and of itself managed to prevent 730 air raids and potentially saved over 2,400 lives. Although nothing remains of them today, at one time there were 230 decoy airfields and over 400 dummy urban and industrial complexes that were built by this team. Their actions would also go on to inspire the creation of the Ghost Army, which we've already talked about in this video. Number 2. Operation Cascade. The Allied forces in the Mediterranean theater in 1941 were severely undermanned, but with fronts requiring men all over Europe, there weren't many soldiers to spare, and this led to the creation and implementation of Operation Cascade. Formulated by the British, it was all about tricking the Axis forces about the Allies' true strength. The objective of Operation Cascade was to create a facade of 8 armored and 21 infantry divisions, a numerical strength that would leave the Axis dumbfounded, especially when the true troop number was just 5 armored and 10 infantry divisions. To achieve this elaborate deception, bogus units were made up and shipped from various bases in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, India, and even South Africa. This wasn't just about numbers on paper though. The plan required meticulous attention to detail, or else the Axis forces would see right through it. A fictional order of a battle had to be crafted for these non-existent units, and they even got their own imaginary crests and signs. The actual troops on the ground would then help to provide a physical presence for these fake soldiers, helping to give the appearance that they were there in the flesh, ready to fight. The ultimate element that thoroughly deceived Axis intelligence was the incorporation of fabricated radio chatter and information provided by fictitious informers in Egypt. Remarkably, a significant portion of these informers were, in fact, double agents, collaborating within the Cheese Network, solidifying the success of the scheme. After the dust settled from the Second Battle of El Alamein, seized documents confirmed their success with the enemy intel overestimating British armored and infantry strength by a whopping 40 to 45%. And at number 1, Bodyguard. The Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied France on June 6, 1944, also known as D-Day, marked the beginning of the campaign to liberate northwestern Europe. A colossal undertaking involving almost 133,000 soldiers landing in heavily fortified territory. But what many people don't know about is the elaborate web of deception that was woven for nearly a year prior to ensure the operation's success. The London Controlling Section, a covert group of military officers, put their heads together to create a plan that was codenamed Bodyguard. Launched in July of 1943, Bodyguard's main objective was to mislead the Germans about the timing and location of the Allied invasion of northwestern Europe. The Allies had 2 powerful elements in this deception game. The first was Ultra, the intelligence derived from Bletchley Park, where skilled codebreakers cracked the German Enigma code. This meant that the Allies could verify the success of any information or misinformation they planted by intercepting and decoding German responses, something that the Germans had no idea they were doing. At the time, they still thought the Enigma code to be infallible. The second factor was the 20 Committee of MI5, the British intelligence agency managing double agents under the double cross system. The Germans remained blissfully unaware that these agents were being manipulated, adding an extra layer to the Allies' cunning plan. The main aim was to convince the Germans that the invasion would occur at the shortest and most obvious sea crossing, from Dover to the Pas de Calais. And to achieve this, Operation Fortitude South was set in motion. It reinforced the belief that any invasion in Normandy would be a diversion, ensuring German defenses were strongest at the supposed main invasion site. The key player in Fortitude South was Quicksilver 1, a sub-operation that created a fake army dubbed the First United States Army Group, or FUSAG, which was supposedly stationed in Dover under General George Patton, a man whom many of the Germans feared. To sell this illusion, dummy landing craft, fake tanks, and vehicles were strategically placed around the southeast of England. Meanwhile, fake radio traffic flooded the airwaves, supported by double agents leaking false information about FUSAG. While the Germans were fixated on the elaborate charade in the southeast, the real invasion force, led by General Montgomery, was preparing to embark from locations further west along the south coast. The success of Bodyguard, especially Fortitude South, was astounding. As late as August 1944, 2 months after the D-Day landings, the Germans still believed in the existence of FUSAG. This misconception kept vital German units away from the main fighting front in Normandy, contributing significantly to the Allies establishing a firm foothold at the beginning of the liberation of Europe. The operation ultimately saved thousands of Allied lives and played a crucial role in turning the tide of the war. Which of these World War II deceptions did you think was the most ingenious? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.